let's move on to an actual trade that happened. No hypotheticals here. This is not a blockbuster trade, but it was a 5-player trade, and there's some good players in here. So we have Portland and the LA Clippers. We have Norman Powell and Robert Covington going to the Clippers in return for Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, and Keon Johnson, who was the 17th pick last season. There's one or two picks involved there, but nothing too serious. What were your initial thoughts on this trade?
What is wrong with Portland? That was my initial thought. I cannot fathom what their thought process here, because I looked up the timeline of their recent trades, because I knew something about Norman Powell really stuck out to me. They traded 2 first-round picks for Robert Covington a couple of years ago, and I thought, okay, these are the sort of big moves that I want teams to be aggressive. This is kind of what I like. Yeah. They traded Norman Powell for... Even if it was over, because Damian Lillard was in the middle of his prime, and I thought, just be aggressive about it. Traded Norman Powell for Gary Trent Jr. At that time, I really didn't like that trade at the same time, because Gary Trent Jr. was like he's 5 years younger than Norman Powell, very similar scorers, and I thought, okay, and now look, and then now the recent look how good the track record that Gary Trent Jr. averaging 30 plus over his last 10.
He's playing well, yeah.
He's out of his mind, and now the Norman Powell, you couldn't even get a first round pick. Because Norman Powell, he's one of those guys that could actually give you 18 to 20. He's not going to score in a flashy way or anything like that, but he could give you 18, 20 points. You couldn't get a first round pick for that. I guess you've got some you've got money, like you've got some cleared up some contract space, and I think now that Simon has jumped out his breakout, I think they're going to give the money to him. I guess that's the only mentality that I could see. Yeah. Maybe they're starting their rebuild, because now I think CJ McCollum will be traded very, very soon. But I have no idea what Portland are doing. If I'm Damian Lillard, I don't know how this bloke has not demanded a trade. The Clippers, I have to tip my hat off. If you can fleece a team like this, you deserve everything. Their depth, when you look at their lineup next year, let's say everyone's fully healthy, their depth is ridiculous. What they could do with small ball lineups, what Ty Lue was doing with Nicholas Batum as your starting 5 last year against the Utah Jazz, who are a well-oiled franchise, and they destroyed them that way. Imagine that team fully healthy. Norman Powell at 2. You've got Covington's a good team defender. I reckon if he's in an environment like the Clippers there with top tier coaching, and he's got like awesome Hall of Fame defenders like Kawhi Leonard around him, it could be really good. So I have to tip my hat for the Clippers. If you can fleece a team like this, go ahead and do it. And Portland, you are an embarrassing franchise. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed.
Oh, he's gone hard, and I love it, because it's pretty true. The only thing, I guess, is, as you said, they're opening up space for Anthony Simons, not only from a salary perspective to pay him, but also from an opportunity standpoint, because in Lillard's absence, he's been fantastic. And I guess after they paid Norman Powell, you could look at that contract and think that might age pretty badly, so they've got themselves off that, I guess. Robert Covington, he's a serviceable player, but I would have thought for those two guys you could get something way better back. So Eric Bledsoe's a negative in terms of trade value. He's a negative. I'm sorry to say, he's a negative, and the only saving grace there is that he's on an expiring. So Eric Bledsoe's probably going to be on. He's probably going to be on the Blazers for another 3 months, realistically, and then that's his time at the Blazers done and dusted. Justice Winslow is a 0. I'm not actually sure how much more time Justice has got in the NBA, if I'm totally honest. I just haven't seen it. He's got the injury issues. I'm just not sure I've seen much of him in the last couple of years that suggests this guy's going to be around for another 6, 7, 8 years plus. And then Keon Johnson, I guess, is the player that you think, okay, 17th pick in the draft, and he actually fell a little bit. There was talk he'd go kind of top 12, top 15 at a point. But you haven't really seen anything out of him that suggests that he should be the centerpiece acquisition when you're giving up Norman Powell and Robert Covington. It just doesn't make any sense. And as you say, it's pretty embarrassing. Like, apart from getting off Powell's money, that's the only thing I can think of, really. And you just have to wonder after this whether there's more moves or another move in place, like a CJ McCollum blockbuster trade, potentially. So we'll wait and see. What I really like for the Clippers is they have got some serious depth now, and I just wonder if this move, getting Powell and Roko in, who are 2 experienced heads, whether they actually think that PG and Kawhi may come back for the playoffs. And if that's the case and they get into a 6, 7, 8 seed, I don't want to play them. I mean, I'm a Warriors fan in the 2 seed right now, and I'm looking at the LA Clippers and their potential lineups come playoff time, thinking, I don't want to borrow this team, because we know they play hard. We know Ty Lue is doing a fantastic job with what he's got at the moment, which is minus PG and minus Kawhi. And I'm kind of thinking of these lineups they could roll with. I'm thinking Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, PG, Kawhi. Then you could run with like a Batum or a Terrence Mann or something like, or a Rocco who you've just got in. That's like 8 blokes. Then if you really need to, you can go to Zubac, especially if you're playing against the Warriors and you want to try and oversize them and go hard on the boards and inside. Then you've got Serge Ibaka, who's come back. Like, that's 10 blokes. Amir Coffey's like playing well, had a 27. Look, Kennard shooting the ball well. Yeah. Like, this is a pretty deep roster, and I'm looking at this like, I don't think anyone wants to play this team. If they can get even one of PG or Kawhi back, they're going to be dangerous, I think. But if they get both of them, I'll tell you, if I was ever going to have a bet on a team from the 7 seed to win the NBA championship, if those guys are fully healthy, this might be the time, to be totally honest. I wonder what the Clippers are paying for the chip right now.
They don't have a single weakness in that. Maybe big, it's like size, maybe, if that, but their small ball lineups work unbelievably well in the playoffs. They're 8th seed right now. They haven't had their Paul George in ages. The run Paul George was on when he started, he looked like the MVP actually towards the start of the season there. But this is what you and I applaud, though. The teams that, regardless, they're still trying regardless. This is what, and I think as if I was quiet Paul George, I can see in my absence my team's still being aggressive. Because they went over. I mean, they gave Marcus Morris $64 million. They also gave Luke Kennard $64 million.
Well, he's another guy that's there that I didn't even mention.
Oh well,
I completely forgot Marcus Morris. He's a good NBA player that give you 15. Like, they've got so many blokes, I'm forgetting them.
Multi-year contract. Like, that's nearly $120 million in just 2 role players. But as a team, I think, wow, you're really seeing a window here. You're being aggressive yourselves. You're like, even if with little things like the load management are quite like, you're literally the optics of it. I think I'm thinking if I was in their position, how good this would look for me, mate. So do you reckon maybe they've got some signs that Paul George and Kawhi might be back? Maybe that's why they're being. Do you reckon there's merit in that?
Yeah, possibly because if those guys were going to be out, I could have actually seen them as sellers at this trade deadline. So the fact they're kind of being buyers, it's scary. It's scary times for the league. It is scary times for the league if those guys come back and they're fully fit and healthy and somewhere near their best. Danger times.
So that means. Do you think CJ McCollum's also out the door? I think this is the start of their rebuild. I think especially the Lillard injury lingering
for Portland,
as well.
yeah.
You'd think
well,
CJ
would be... does Dame really want to go through a rebuild? Not really. He's 31, 32 years of age. So if you're going to go a rebuild, don't be half-assed about it. Go full in and trade Dame and CJ and Nurkic and just see how much young talent and draft picks you can get. Go full into it. Like, what's the point of trying to rebuild around Damian Lillard and getting, like, what are you trying to do? Get a top 5 pick in the next couple of years to try and pair with him? Like, it's either try and pair a better co-star than CJ McCollum, which is, I'd be trying to trade McCollum for a better player.
Right.
Or trade McCollum for a worse player and picks and a young talent and trade Dame as well and just get as much as you can. Like, again, we always talk about these teams that are just sitting in the middle, not really having any direction. And that's the issue with Portland at the moment. And, I mean, they're not really in the middle these days. With Dame out, they're just a bad basketball team that are going to finish in the bottom 5 of their conference. It's just, as you say, it's embarrassing.
I think this Simons breakout has been the saving grace from this season because Lillard's decline... The lack of trade offers that I'd imagine no one just really listening to any trade offers there. And I think this is the one shining light that's come from this season. And now that's just going to trigger a whole bunch of events. CJ going, I feel like there'll be Lillard. We love what you've done for this franchise. We want you to we'll try to trade you to whatever team you want to, but we need to kickstart this because if this is how they're going to start rebuilding, getting fleeced by teams. Oh God, the Portland TrailBlazers. My God.
This is the start of the build around Anthony Simons era at the Portland TrailBlazers.